I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Shannon Rugani. Shannon is a very talented individual. She is a professional ballet dancer. She is a singer, songwriter, composer, pianist, and producer. But not only that, she sees the benefits of getting into technology to integrate these two fields. I want to see what motivates her, what keeps her going, what gets her up each day to work hard in an industry such as hers. Join me in this conversation with Shannon Rugani. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, as I just mentioned, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Shannon Rugani, but she also goes as Empress, her stage name, the one for her writing career and her singing career that is starting to flourish. So I'd like to welcome Empress. Good afternoon, young lady.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. I gave a little introduction, as I just mentioned at the beginning, but could you give us a little pathway of your life, and then we'll bring it back a few years?
I love it. Okay, sounds great. I am Shannon/Empress. I am a singer-songwriter and a former professional ballerina with San Francisco Ballet and a Broadway actress in a Broadway show called An American in Paris. And let's see. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. And we can crack that nut now.
We will crack that. And I'm sure, thank you for coming on here. You've probably had to crack that nut many a times and to repeat yourself. So let's go back. And even this is probably something you've had to repeat many times. But when did you even get your first job? I know, just reading up on you and listening to some of your interviews, you started dancing at a very young age. But what was maybe one of your very first jobs?
Oh yeah. Let's see. I feel like I just went to a dinner party and that was one of the questions. It was like, what was your first job? My first real job actually was let's see. I was 7 years old and I was chosen to be the littlest girl in the Nutcracker for Oakland Ballet, which came
Speaking
to
of
my
cracking a nut,
hometown.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Not lots of nuts. Yeah, lots of nuts have been cracked during the holidays for me, for sure. Lots of nutcrackers. So it started at 7 actually, and I was chosen to be. There's always like a little girl that really doesn't do much. She like comes on stage for like the value add of being cute, and then it's the end of the dance, and everybody's like, oh, that was me. So 7 years old, that was my first job.
So
And
this
then
was a paying sort of position that you...
yeah, I think I mean it was dollars and cents. I mean, it was really not much. But that was that. And then and this was a really fun job too. When I was I don't know, like I want to say 9, I was chosen to be in this film with it was starring Tilda Swinton back when nobody knew who Tilda Swinton was, and I got to be a little extra in this film called The Deep End. And they cut that entire scene basically out of the film. But we spent the entire day with Tilda. She has twins. So we're hanging out with them because I'm about around the same age as the twins. And years later, I saw her. We went to this restaurant in Paris. Well, this is a flash forward. An American in Paris opened in Paris, like best marketing skill ever. So we were in Paris and we went to this hotel. I think it was called L'Hotel or something. And the bar had on the menu the Tilda Swinton drink. And I was like telling all my friends about Tilda Swinton. And this sounds like a joke, but it's not. Tilda Swinton walks in a bar, walks into the bar that I was in. And I just told the story about how I, met her a long time ago in this film that nobody's ever heard of, and like before she was famous. And she walked in, so I ended up buying the Tilda Swinton drink for Tilda Swinton, and then walking over to her and being like, I was an extra in the movie. Do you remember that movie? Even because she's done everything since then, So it was one of those, that was a cool first job to be in a film, even if they did cut my entire scene.
So this is at 9, and then at 7 you were doing the other with the Nutcracker. And so
Yeah, the Nutcracker.
what I know that you started dancing at an even earlier age, obviously, since you're on a stage and doing these other things. At what age was that? Was that?
Yeah, I think, well, my mom actually corrected me. I've been saying I started dancing when I was 6. And she said I started dancing with that when I was 5. But I actually got kicked out of my first ballet class for crying the entire time. Like the beginning till end, I just was screaming and crying. And so the teacher had to like hold me the whole time and handed me back at the end of the class and was like, please do not bring this girl back to ballet.
It's funny. I have a daughter and she's 11, and I asked her a moment ago, I said, do you want to come in and say hello to her? She's like, But
Yes.
I recall, and she loves ballet. I recall bringing her to ballet the first time when she was about 4, and there was the little girls there. There was some were probably too excited to be there because they may not have had the talent that they probably needed at the time, and they could develop themselves. But then there was these other little girls that were just petrified. But you knew that like at home they were probably dancing and twirling and would have loved it being on that spot.
It's so weird. Yeah, like people, they forget how to walk even. Like I've seen kids, I'm like, okay, I know you know how to walk. But when you tell some little girl to walk like a ballerina, all of a sudden they're like, I don't know how to walk at all. Like they're like walking with the same arm and leg. And you're like, oh, no, you know how to do this. I've seen you twirl around. That's a pirouette. You know, it's like people just, they know that ballet is all about perfection. And so then all of a sudden it's like, I don't know how to do anything. How do I breathe? I'm not breathing, you know?
So when you went into ballet, like for us, I believe we kind of steered our daughter into ballet, but it wasn't a hard sell.
Right. You weren't like a stage mom or stage dad kind of thing. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I was just the proud papa going, making sure no one's looking at my daughter and making sure, no one's bullying her. And I'm like, that's my girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I did. How was it for you?
Oh my God, it's funny. My parents also, because I was the firstborn, so they were like, what do we do with a little girl? You enroll her in dance lessons because that's just what you do. Yeah. And they have the funniest story. I don't think I've ever shared this one, is my parents came to the parent student, like, or whatever, they have a parents PT can watch day or whatever. Yeah. So they come in with all the other proud parents, and everyone's, it's like the kids aren't competitive, the parents are more competitive, but like my parents were not, they're competitive in sports, but they were just like, oh, isn't our daughter cute? But I was, okay, so it was a split class, tap and ballet. So like half an hour was tap and half an hour was ballet. Mm-hmm. And this is like not a school, this is like dance studio. It's super Dolly Dinkle. There's only one in my town, so it was like not hard to find a dance, it's like to choose. Mm-hmm. Marius Petipa, Shining Stars, and I am the only girl sitting upright on my knees, like with my hands on my knees, totally like a statue on this like line, and all the other girls are like running around and screaming and dancing around, and I'm just sitting there like a stoic, right?
How you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And my parents were mortified. They're like, there's something wrong with our daughter. Like, what is she doing? She had to go play with the other kids. What is she doing? She's so weird. Like, why is she doing? And then the teacher walks in and she goes, now ladies, you know where you're supposed to be. And all the girls formed the line, or I was sitting in the middle, and everyone just like the ducks in a row. And my parents were like, that was weird.
She knew.
Okay.
You knew.
So she knew. Yeah. And I was just like, I worked so hard. And I remember thinking, I remember this one moment, I was 7. There was a ballet teacher that taught the seniors, so 17 to 18. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so she came, her class was right after our ballet class. And I remember she came and she would not stop staring at me. And I thought she was staring because I was really bad. So I was trying really, really hard. And she went up to the Marius Petipa and asked her if I could be in her class. I was 7 and she's teaching the 17-year-olds. And Marcia had a very strict rule of like, kids cannot like they're in their grade levels, and that's it. It's like age and grade, and that's how they're you know,
Categorized.
it wasn't by like beginner, intermediate, advanced. It was just like by grade. And it was pretty strict that way. And the teacher asked, and Marcia said no. And the woman ended up saying, well, if she's not in my class, then I'm not teaching here next year. And so, of course, here I am. I'm like 7 years old with a 17-year-old all of a sudden, which isn't saying much, to be honest. Like, I don't want to shoot down all of the poor girls in that class, but probably thought that they were so good. But it's a really small town, and there's no real formal training. So, I mean, it's really like big fish in a small pond, you know. But for me, 7-year-old, I like rose to their level pretty quickly. So like you asked how I went from like 6 to 7 to being on stage with like the Oakland Ballet. It was because I was like a dry sponge that just got thrown into a big bucket of water and was just like absorbing. And I thrived in that environment. And it was always like, I was always the youngest as a dancer. I was always the youngest in all the groups that I was with because I was always in a small town. But then I got into the San Francisco Ballet School when I was 14, and I was the youngest in the, I went from, there's level 8 is the highest level. I was the youngest in the highest level, one of the youngest in history. And then I got hired at 16, which was one of the youngest in San Francisco Ballet's history too. So that was a theme throughout my whole, you know, career. I was always, you know, setting records for being the youngest in.
You're like those rookies that come up in sports and all the veterans are like,
yeah, they're like puff, like, who's this young little
few extra elbows or shots or go make you do something.
I definitely got bullied a lot, but I was so naive that I didn't know what bullying even was. And I was homeschooled, so I didn't really have that peer pressure at home. So I was very naive to bullying for a long time. I'd be like, gosh, they're being kind of mean to me. But then, you know, like as a 7 to 15-year-old, you're just like, you just kind of brush it off like, whatever, there's going to be a million more friends in my life, you know. It's fine.
So it was interesting how you mentioned your parents, and I was getting the sense that they weren't pushing you. You were the, you know, first daughter, and okay, well, what do we do with this child? We'll put this child in this thing and see how she goes. It wasn't, okay, this is what you must do. And a subtle, seemingly subtle difference, or it could be perceived subtly. It is a major difference on how parents parent.
Yeah.
And for you also mentioning homeschooling. So usually, I don't know your parents, I don't know you very well, but it seems like you were nurtured in a you know, a caring, supportive home. So would you say that helped you at least initially, because eventually you had to, you know, fly on your own? But how, especially for this podcast of Why We Work and understanding even people who become parents on here's a way you might want to consider raising your kids, because they too will get into the workforce and be a productive member of society. So for you, how did that help in the way, you know, I'm a parent, I fail, I'm a horrible parent most of the times, but I'm trying to be good some of the times. So I'm not trying to say your parents are ideal, but how was their nurturing effective in bringing you through your young years?
They were incredible parents on so many levels, because they always supported me without pushing me, and they always offered their support as if it was always the backup plan. Like, I couldn't fail, so go and try that, and if it doesn't work out, you can always come home, you know. Like, that was always the thing. And ironically, my mom and dad, they sat all of the kids down at some, you know, it was like a homeschool thing. We actually had a great homeschool group. It was like this small town, but we actually had a couple families that would like, we'd get some tutors and things going for like,
whoever's,
you know, different writing lessons and literature. And exactly. And we had like tons of, it was pretty cool because we had just, you know, my mom didn't teach us everything. It wasn't she was the teacher for everything.
Did you do that from primary through grade 12?
All my entire school schooling was, I went to preschool for like a month and I was not doing well. I was super shy
Your
and I
parents are
cried
said
the entire time.
homeschooling. They tried. Well, even
Actually,
that is that's commendable to your parents. Like they tried public school. They tried
yeah,
something. They gave it a try,
they
and then they
tried it
said
and it
no.
wasn't working for me at all. And actually my mom volunteered at the school one day, and it was art class, and I loved art so much. I was drawing something, um and I always came home with half finished artwork. And so she volunteered for that class just to see what was going
What's
on.
going on?
And it was because it was timed, right? So you only had like a half hour for art. And there were certain things that I got really fast. Like as a kid, I was really good at math. So I was like, I get math really fast. Spelling, like I suck at spelling to this day. I'm still like, how do you spell that? I have no idea. And so like my mind works in different ways, but when you're homeschooled, you can kind of edit for your kids. Cause like she was there when the alarm rang, or like the bell rang, for us to like move on to the next thing. And I was like, I'd always like freak out, like, no, I didn't finish, you know, like I'm not done with my art piece. And then I'd be like, yeah, okay, gravity, rock falls, like, can I go back to my art now? You know, it's like, it just wasn't working for me personally. And so my mom had a friend who had homeschooled all of her children, and they were amazingly behaved kids. They could look adults in the eyes and have a conversation with people. It was like they were really evolved for their age. And my mom thought, it's just interesting. And then she read this book called Homegrown Kids and another one called A Thomas Jefferson Education, and just decided that like changed her mind. And my brother and sister were homeschooled until high school, and I basically graduated high school way early because I was dancing professionally. So, but when I was 7, my mom and dad sat me down and said, okay, I want you to write down your dreams and goals in life. And I was like pretty concise with mine.
It's pretty good at
ballerina.
7 to be able to write that down too, for some kids
Right, I know.
nowadays.
Exactly, 7 years old. So ballerina 1, actress 2, singer 3. Is that not like, I mean,
You're done now. And you're only young, and you finished it all.
I now have a lot more dreams, but they're like more specific.
Yeah.
That one was a big broad stroke, but it was pretty specific for a 7-year-old to like know what I wanted to do with my life. And I mean, that's when you know that there's someone upstairs that has your life kind of planned out, that you were sent here on a mission. I know that my mission was definitely to be a performing artist, and that's, you know, I'm grateful that I have been able to do that, you know, because a lot of people want to do it and then, you know, get injured. You don't have the right body type. You have parents that don't support you. There's all kinds of variations, but I was just like, and my parents don't dance. They don't do but no one's really in music. My dad plays the drums. He loves it, but it's not like the piano or singing and songwriting or, you know, so there's no reason for me to have chosen those things at 7 years old. There was no one guiding me. There's no one in my small town to tell me like, I'm a ballerina and this is what you should do. It's like, I don't know how I knew, but I knew.
It's interesting how, well, you said someone upstairs to have a purpose for your life, which I agree. And also having your parents to give you that breathing room. I mean, you were young, but it wasn't that hand-on, you must do this. And there was no seemingly alternative reason for them to get you into those. So it allowed you to open up, to think about what it is you would like to do. And you some good answers and prophetic words, I guess, to some degree.
One of my girlfriends, really fast, I'm going to throw this in. She told her kids, and I love this. It's kind of along the same lines of all of this, but I love that she said this to her kids. She goes, find your passion, find where you want to live, and then figure out how to make money doing what you want to be doing in the place that you want to be living. And I always thought that was so interesting because I kind of knew San Francisco Ballet was the place I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be there. Like, there were so many little tiny things that I was like, I was guided with my parents. I mean, they kind of were on this journey with me because no one knew what we were like. I look back and we did all the right steps, but we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, my mom she'd just ask me after ballet class, did you learn anything today? And if I started saying no, then she was like, okay, well, I'm not paying for that. So let's find a better class for you. So then we'd go to the next one. And it was just it was the right things to have happened, but we had no idea what we were doing. And it happened kind of more out of, you know, my mom just like, I'm not paying for a class.
A reaction to whatever was going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
For
interesting.
you being in California, do you think, I mean, did that give you many opportunities to get into, say, the Nutcracker and to the, you know, some of those extra scenes with the movie or any others?
I think so. I wonder sometimes because, you know, in San Francisco Ballet in particular, I danced with people from all over the world, and they all have different backgrounds and upbringings and parents and all the things. Yeah, and they're all in the same place with me. You know, at the time when I was in the company, it was like we're all there together. So it's funny how, you know, it's written in the stars for you. Like, I think there's definitely a destiny for every one of us, but like, I think growing up in California, it does give you more opportunity. But I think about like, well, if I grew up in San Francisco, would I have just been a better dancer because I would have had better training from a younger age? Because really my training only started when I was 14, when I got into the San Francisco Ballet School, because my dance classes, you know, I learned, each teacher I kind of consider like a fairy godmother. They gave me one or two gifts. One of them would be like, you know, graceful arms. And then another one was really fast footwork. And someone else was stage presence because she was a showgirl in Vegas and like knew how to like, you know, suck an audience in. And then another one would be acting, and one would be speaking French. So like they all gave me little nuggets, but there wasn't one teacher that gave them all to me like they would have in a big ballet school.
When are you gonna write your movie, your manual? I mean, that would be a cute little movie, wouldn't it? That this little girl went to go, and you had these I mean, you can put some technology. I know you're getting into technology, but these little fairy godmothers that do this and give you this, and then you get this, and then you.
Oh, I love that. That's a really cute idea.
1%.
Yeah. All right. Well, it started here, and everyone that's listening.
But it would be I think that would be, I mean, ballet movies, and my daughter loves them, but and I enjoy them too. You always get a tear, and you see how they progress. But that would be very interesting to have this little girl growing up, and then she has this little teacher that gives her this and this and this, and it can be, you know, dramatized or something along the way.
I love it.
And then in the end, she's dancing on the stage, you know, singing "Lovely I Am" or something.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love it. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's happening. We're just, yeah, I'll write it. Love it.
So
always some projects.
I don't want to drag you through the ballet school and all that you've experienced, but how about the education that you received along the way? How important was that for you? I mean, you can speak about ballet, but I'm sure you've answered so many questions about your experience.
No, this is amazing. These are all amazing questions, by the way, that I have not been asked. So thank you very much for getting creative on these. The ballet, it's interesting. So the lesson, the one takeaway that I really like, this has helped me so much in life, was we all work hard in the ballet. I mean, in life in general, like there's a lot of people who work hard. The difference between the like corps de ballet and then the prima ballerinas was the difference in the way that they thought before they danced.
Can you define that? I don't know what you're talking. I hear someone's a prima ballerina. I'm like, that's okay. Right. But what's the difference between the two? Okay, so there's three, or there could be more levels, but in San Francisco Ballet specifically, there's there's apprentices, and then there's the corps de ballet, and then there's soloists, and then there's principals. Corps de ballet. Corps de ballet, and it's CORPS, corps de ballet. Okay. And so the corps de ballet is the ensemble, the group of swans, you know, in Swan Lake, and then the principal is the lead swan. Yes. And if you have like a little solo part or something, that's a soloist generally. Okay. And in San Francisco Ballet, it's unique because they're not super rigid on the
the ranking, it's more based on your ability. Like if you can do a principal role and you're brand new in the company in the corps de ballet in the lowest rank, they will still give you a principal role.
Chance,
yeah, because and you might not be first cast for it all, but like but you know, let's say you're second or third cast and you get a couple performances, that's a huge opportunity for you.
So
And
hard work pays off.
yeah, and it like actually is really a beautiful thing, because when you're talented, you actually get to dance the roles. Whereas like in some companies, they have very strict ranks, and if you're not a soloist, you're never going to do a solo, like, you know, or a principal. They only ever do that. And
you're gonna
sometimes
have to break someone's leg or something to finally get there. They have to be
Black Swan shenanigans, exactly.
Well, that's encouraging for
and
young people, especially like yourself, who was going up through. If you had the talent, then you could shine, opposed to waiting your turn.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, most of my opportunities came from just being prepared for the opportunity. Because, you know, people get injured and sick, and something happens where the casting has to shift because someone else has to do another role, and all these things. And here I am, I know the part and I'm ready. And I've, you know, I was like fourth cast, thinking I was never going to probably do it, but I was prepared for it just in case. And the just in case usually happened for me. So that was actually the best opportunities I had, the ones I prepared for. So
just in case.
So that was, the just in case factor is really, I mean, it's having a good attitude, being easygoing about things. They threw me on stage for some, like, a couple performances in my career, and not just a couple, many performances, where they just, you know, oh, she's easygoing, I'm just gonna it's just the opposite. It's the opposite of what she does. She can just reverse it, and it's like, oh my God, like my brain is already fried from 16 hours of rehearsal and all these things. And sure, I'll do it, whatever.
But
you know,
they trusted you.
They trusted me, and because I learned how to be like, they called me cool as a cucumber on Broadway, because like if something went wrong, you just have to, the show must go on, so you have to figure out a way. And I always did, and you always get through it, and you go to bed at the end of the night and you're fine. I used to do this thing. I had one partner in a show that was not my favorite show in the world. I will go unnamed, and my partner was miscast. He was way shorter than I was, and he just had a shoulder injury, and we had all these crazy shoulder lifts and things. He should not have been on stage with me. And for there are
you gonna tell me that you lifted him up and started twirling him around? Is that
I wish. Oh my God, it would have probably gone better than it did. But I would do this mental exercise of imagining myself bowing healthy at the end of the show every night, because I could have gotten injured several times working with this guy. And you know, these lifts were not easy, and it was a nightmare. So I would just imagine myself healthy and safe at the end of the show, bowing, and like going home at night being totally healthy, like before the show started. I would just like visualize that. And knock on wood, you know, like every show I got to go home safe. There were a couple moments where I was like, I could have died, but you know, I didn't. So, but when the one thing you did ask me, to go back to the beginning of this whole thing that I took you on, was the learning to work smart, not just hard. That was the main takeaway from my education there, and actually like asking people to help. It's really hard to do, because you have to be super humble, and you have to be open to hearing what they have to say, and it might not always be what you want to hear. But if you knock on someone's door, and they will open the door, and if you ask to come in, they will welcome you in with open arms 100% of the time. I mean, the people that I worked with were so talented, and they were all from different backgrounds, and they all had different strengths. And if someone was an amazing turner and I was having trouble with this, you know, like a certain turn, then I would go up to them and I'd say, do you think you could help me with this turn? What do you think about when you do this? And watch me do it. And what am I doing wrong? Because it's not working. And they would they'd say, oh yeah, it's this, and then it would work. Or, you know, they'd say, oh, it's because of blah, 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 blah. And something would click, and then it was, you know, so much better. And then there, that channel's open. So when they see you, you know, in company class or something, warm up, they go, hey, you know, blah, blah, your back leg is too far behind you. And that's why you're off, you know, whatever. So they'll start like giving you little tidbits. And because when you go from the ballet school, which the whole focus is technique, and then you go into a ballet company, they expect you to have the technique already baked in. And now they have to transform you into an artist. And so you become an artist. But then what happens is your technique starts declining a little bit. And if your technique starts declining, then you get injuries. You don't get better roles. There's all kinds of things. So you have to you have to take it upon yourself to continue your education, because you should never stop learning ever. But for whatever reason, we learn in a different way when you get into a company. So you just have to kind of go back to the basics every day. I mean, the best dancers go back to their 6-year-old self, and, you know, like they're still absorbing, you know, they're that dry sponge. They're still learning. It's an amazing thing. So working smart was the thing that I really took away from that. And that's helped me in life on so many levels.
So you said that you were finished high school or homeschooling through high school, or high school through homeschooling at a younger age. What age was that?
I finished it all when I was 16.
Nice.
Yeah, we were working full time. I was starting, homeschooling, I couldn't be homeschooled once I got hired. So what I did, I asked for all of the schoolwork that I would have to do in the next, 2 to 3 years. And I finished it like over Christmas break once. That's all I did was school 24/7 for like, I don't know, I want to say 3 weeks or something. And I just graduated high school early. So
how far did you go with more academic schooling while you were in ballet school? And then
well, I always was taking lessons, but it started becoming, what do I need to learn to help me, whatever it is that I'm in my career. And it was interesting because I do really well with privates. So I was always taking lessons, like singing lessons, acting lessons. Then I started taking like Tai Chi lessons and things, because it was getting me into my body more, and doing Pilates lessons and like all kinds of cool things that were helping me in my career. And still to this day, I'm always learning. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a writing class and I'm going to do this. And I'm always kind of absorbing, but I've never gone back full time to school, because I always felt like my career as an artist, and this is my opinion only, as an artist, working is the best school, because working with the, all of the people that I got to work with, that was amazing. And I know a couple dancers who actually couldn't get professor, teaching jobs in colleges, because they didn't have the formal training or like education, but they had danced for 30 years and are way more
they know everything about it.
Yeah, and they actually have the experience. So I always thought that was really interesting, because the college experience for artists specifically, it's like that's your prime anyway, like for your body's like kind of in its prime, and you should be working, and then maybe go to school later, which a lot of dancers do now. There's this program called the LEAP program, where you can get your college bachelor's degree while you're dancing. They like totally tailor it for them, and then a lot of them go off to be in Harvard and Stanford and all these amazing things. So my career transition was always into music and theater and learning about engineering and all the tech stuff that I'm starting to get into. It's been interesting, but I kind of learn as I go. If that makes sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And it makes perfect sense that you would only learn what you need to learn, and you had enough on your plate and there was no need for anything else.
I mean, people that asked me, people that would ask me, especially from my hometown, what do you do for, like, they'd ask me what I do for a living. And I
how do
say
you
I'm a
support
ballerina.
yourself?
And then they're like, oh, but what do you really
But
do?
yeah.
Like, oh my God. I'm just like, it's a full-time job and I probably make more money than you do.
And I do pretty well. Thank you. Look at this.
Yeah, exactly. So it was interesting because people don't really take it that serious. But at the same time, this year, finally, this happened. What was it? It was some government, you know, statement that came out that ballet is actually officially, in the States at least, the hardest physical profession in the country, which is kind of something else. So officially 2020, dance
Finally,
was
they
named.
made it.
Finally. And dancers on the side will teach fitness classes, and that was like number 5. So it was like cherry topper and all of that. It's like on top of it all, we're like in the top 5 twice. You know?
I was going to ask that, and then you're bringing it up now, is the idea of being a professional athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, by what you just said, technically you are. Did you always feel when you reached your pinnacle of, or even climbing up, that you were a professional athlete in the sense that, especially America, right? Like you're a football player or, baseball player.
Right.
That's a professional.
Totally.
And you could take a lot away from baseball. Baseball is good, but they're not the most athletic people at all times, right? And now you're looking at a ballerina who obviously you could probably jump higher and do many other things better than a lot of other. Did you always feel that you were a professional athlete in the strictest of senses, and even more so than many others?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I got injured a lot early on in my career, and we would be sent to this this like physical therapy rehabilitation center, and this woman, Lisa Gioni, was she's kind of like the guru for athletes in the Bay Area, and actually just well known and respected in the sports arena in general, because like she works with everyone from football, hockey, soccer, tennis, golf, even. I mean, it was like all across the board, all of these things. And then she works with the San Francisco Ballet, and you would have like this gigantic lineman like next to you working out, doing the same exercises, and the difference would be one is like grunting and the other one's smiling, because that's what we're trained to do in pain. You like just
I can
smile
picture
through
you
it,
as a
and
little
like we
girl
make it
just
look
sitting in the middle of the
super easy. Totally. I'm like, pain, this is like what we do, and we smile through it. And so I just remember seeing all of like tears. Oh my God, I've had so many shows where it's so painful to stand. They don't tell you this in ballet school, and I'm sorry to break this to a lot of the dancers in the world, but in the ballet school they teach you to be the prima ballerina, and then they never tell you that when you join a company you start at the bottom. So like you are going to be swan number 16, like with your arm shaking and like going, to sleep over your head, and your feet are going to cramp and your sweat is going to drip into your eye and sting because the makeup is there and like you can't move. Oh, and by the way, like now you have to do the hardest slow hop on one leg that you can't feel. Like they don't tell you any of this stuff, that being, at the top of your game in the ballet school, and then like immediately doing the easiest thing, just standing. It was the hardest thing. And I got injured a lot because, our training isn't standing, and you would not believe how hard it is to stand on one leg, the other foot's turned out, pointed toes, neck is this way, shoulders down, or like arms up or whatever. Your biceps start spasming because you're just whatever. But there'd be girls, you could see, it was never me. I mean, I wanted to cry sometimes, but you're like so focused that you don't. But there would be girls that would just break on stage in front of me, and you could see their shoulders like shaking because they're crying and pain. Like definitely ballet is the hardest thing. Everything for me anyways has been downhill from here. I mean, even Broadway was like hard, but in a very different way and much easier than ballet,
So you're surely an athlete.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Shannon, I want to transition a bit from Shannon to Empress.
Ooh,
but if there's anything you'd like to highlight of Shannon as the dancer be free to do so. But how did you begin to make this transition? What set, I mean, it could have been the injuries. It could have been, you know, just being tired of dancing, like for a career.
Yeah.
What was it that transitioned you into this new path of work?
That's a great question. So I feel like the transition was a really gradual, it was finding my voice, really, is what it was. And I found my voice surprisingly in the ballet, where, I mean, I was always a loud person, like in general. I was always the loudest ballerina you've ever met. They were always telling me to be quiet. And now, ironically, I will not go quietly, you know, I'm like the loudest person ever. But the ballet had an audition for singing, which was, you know, we were not hired to sing. So like nobody really is excited about this audition except for me. I like secretly was really excited. I was sweating.
It was on your list from when you were 7.
Yeah, exactly.
You had that
so
in your back pocket.
Wait, this could be it. So they had us all audition for the role of Anita, which is the only role that sings in West Side Story Suite. It's the shortened version of West Side Story. And we had Is it really Anita? Oh, I love that.
Passed away this February, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
That's
well, Anita, yes, we are thinking of you, and I will tell a fun story about playing the role of Anita. I love it. So Anita was, you know, it was just a cool role. Rita Moreno, who is in the film, actually came to see the live performance because I ended up getting the opening night and sang in front of 3,500 people for the first time. I'd never sung Happy Birthday to my parents, like let alone 3,500 people in an opera house for a ballet where no one's expecting you to sing at all. And so
ballerinas don't sing.
No, yeah, they don't sing ever. So I get this, I mean, it was so scary. I was like so nervous. Like there were so many things that were going on, but I'll skip through all of that and say it was a happy ending. Yeah. Rita Moreno came backstage afterwards and was like so proud. And, you know, it was just, it was amazing. It was such a great experience. And since that day, I have not shut up. So I was 19 when I found my voice. And then the voice just kind of, it started becoming like, okay, I just have to get used to making noise. At first, I still, to this day, have trouble breaking the silence because we're trained in the ballet to be seen and not heard. And we take a lot of pride in the fact that our jumps, we land, you know, quietly. Yeah. So it's just, we take a lot of pride in our silence. And so breaking that silence is really tough. And the transition from that to Broadway, the loudest place ever, is not only the city, New York is super loud, but it's the people are louder, you know? And it's like first day of ballet class, we had a warm-up class on Broadway. And I'll tell you about how I got to Broadway really fast. That night that I did Anita, Christopher Wheeldon, who is the director for American in Paris, was sitting in the audience and he saw me sing. And when he was casting the show 8 years later, he remembered that I was a ballerina who could sing and invited me to Broadway. Like, isn't that how stars align? It's amazing. So super grateful for that transition. But first day of work on Broadway, so excited. We're doing a little warm-up ballet class, and the pianist was playing all these pop songs, which I was like, this is awesome. Like, it's not classical. This is amazing. So he started playing this pop song, and everyone started singing along to it. And I was like, oh my God, I've always, this, I feel like I'm a green alien meeting other green aliens. And this is like where I was always supposed to be. Like, oh my God, I met my people. And I called Rob that night. And I was like, they even get my jokes. I mean, it was like everything clicked for me. And that opened a whole can of worms into kind of being okay with making noise and breaking that silence. And then like learning how to make more of it and find my voice. So Empress came from me actually just discovering my voice as an artist. And it's the first time in my artistic career where I'm actually making it like mine. You know, it's not someone else's steps. It's not someone else telling me what my costume is. And it's not someone else writing lyrics for me. It's my words. It's my voice. It's my music. It's my idea. It's all the things. It's mine. So it was purely a self coronation, because I wear a lot of tiaras for a living. So it was like every time I'd put my crown on, I'd like imagine, the crown is such an interesting symbol, because there can be so much insecurity in a crown. Like, only because I've played a queen probably 150 million times on stage before, I had to know my history. But the history of the crown is so interesting to me, because it's given to you by the kingdom, and it's only given to you for this lifetime, however long or short that is, and then it's passed on to the next king. So no king or queen. So no royal that's wearing it really owns the crown. So there's a lot of insecurity involved in wearing a crown, because people need things from you, and you have more than someone else, and you're always pointing outwardly, and there's just a lot of insecurity involved with that. And so when I really became Empress, I was like, okay, this is a self-coronation. It's not that I am trying to rule over anyone else. I'm actually just finally ruling over my own life, and actually creating my own happiness, and creating my own art, and really owning it. And if I can inspire other people to do that too, I think that's just a beautiful thing. If this world could just shift from always pointing the finger outwardly to just shifting it and pointing inwardly, how much beauty and change we could get when we aren't so angry about the problems of the world, or like we take on everyone else's problems, and we really just need to, the only thing we can control is ourselves. That's really like bottom line, and so actually
that's difficult.
Yeah, and that can be difficult, but when you can kind of start to just realize that you're in control, and you own your own crown, and you don't really need anything from other people unless you give it away. It's a choice. It's all a choice. And so I'm here to remind people that we each wear our own crown, and that we all have it within our power to take ownership of our life, and our, create our own happiness.
So I'd like to find out what you do to stay busy now as Empress, but do you have other people in your team helping you out? Like, actually, where did you come up with the word Empress? Like,
Yeah. Empress was that was an interesting one. I popped into my head one day, because I was like, it has to be royal, because I was always a royal in ballets. Like, I just feel like I had so much background of being a duchess, the queen, the princess, the empress, it was always something that I knew how to do that walk and do the whole thing. And I love sparkles, and I love tiaras, and that's one of the reasons why ballet was a perfect fit for me as a kid too, because I was that kid that showed up at the playground in like my dance recital costume, and my mom would be like mortified, like, no, what are you wearing? Why are you wearing that sparkly pink tutu and a tiara at the playground on like the middle of the winter? What are you doing? So it was always a good fit for me anyways, and it fit my personality. And then it also made me feel like, I could create my own empire through this, which is, being a ballerina and then going to Broadway. Everyone always called me this like prima ballerina when I was in New York. I'm like, not a prima ballerina, but then I'd go back to ballet, and they'd call me a Broadway star. And I'm like, why do I have to always be something else for you people? Why do you always need to put me in a box? I'm an actress. I'm also a dancer. I'm a composer. I'm also a songwriter. I'm a singer. I do everything. I'm a writer. I do all of these cool things, but why do I have to be one for people? And so being able to kind of have the freedom to create my own like platform, my own, I call it the empire.
Yeah.
And it's mine. It's not someone else's. It's not like I'm trying to rule over anyone else. I'm just trying to take, this box and just like open up the walls so that we have creative freedom to grow and expand the way that we're supposed to, instead of always being something easy for people to understand. It's like, it's not being an artist being in a box. So for me, I really liked the idea of Empress, and then it wasn't taken, which I was just like shocked. And recently I got it I have a registered trademark for the name. So now I actually officially own the name, which is kind of fun to like not only pretend to own your crown, but actually to own the name Empress.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Well,
Legally
it's
speaking.
the same thing. People talk about branding yourself. I mean, this is
Yeah.
a more beautiful way to say you're branding yourself as the Empress, and
Yeah.
this is your
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the brand is empowering myself and then inspiring others to do the same thing.
So do you have a team?
The team is building for sure. I have so many people involved with my success. It's like, I told you earlier, it's like the fairy godmothers. Each one has their strength and each one has their purpose in my life. And sometimes they come, it's like an ebb and flow. So I have a few people that I always keep close to me. My husband's one of those people. And then I have a producer and I have a songwriting partner that I work with sometimes in New York. And that's kind of, the team just keeps on building from there. I mean, it's like, it just keeps building, and I'm way open to it continuing to, build.
Expand.
But it's interesting because the music industry is a little bit murkier than any of the careers that I've had. As far as, it's not that the people are bad, it's just that you have more options. I mean, it's like in the ballet, if you can't physically do the steps, you don't get a part. And if you're not good enough, you don't have a job usually. And so it's very black and white that way. In the Broadway world, you have to fit the bill perfectly. And on your worst day, it has to still be good enough to do 8 times a week, and so it's a different thing. But then in the music industry, there's so many people, it's just hard to know who to trust and who to talk to and who to work with. So it's been an interesting transition into that world, because it's been a lot of my very close friends, from all of the things that I've done, who have introduced me to someone. And that's kind of how I've been networking, is through people that I trust that introduced me to one of their friends. And then that's kind of how it always seems to evolve. I mean, I'm always open, but it's harder, on the internet. It's like, how do you trust people, and all the things. It's just interesting.
It's a really interesting side lesson that you just said about things are black and white. Either you have the talent in a lot of these industries or you don't, and you can't get a job just because you think you should. Because a lot of people think that, that word privilege, people feel that they're privileged to have something. And I don't mean it in the negative sense. It's always touted, just the idea of that they have a right to this job or this position, just because, no, in reality, if you don't have the skills, you don't have the talent, you don't have even the drive to keep it up, you're not going to last in these industries. And even, I'm sure you would say with music as well, it is murky. But when it boils down to it, if you can't sing, of which you can, then you will not find your position. You will not be selling records. You might be making them, but you're not going to be selling them. And that's what the ultimate goal is.
At the end of the day, the ballet is really the hardest of all the professions that I've worked in, as far as, if you can't do the steps, you're not gonna, that's just, it doesn't matter who how much money you give, like who you're dating. It does not matter. You have to be able to do the job, and you can't get away with faking it. Everybody sees right through that. You just can't physically fake that. On Broadway, you can fake it a little bit, but it's really hard to fake it 8 times a week. So but they have a bigger pool to draw from. Like in the ballet, there's 80 people in San Francisco Ballet. And within those 80 people, it's like, let's say 40 women that, now there's only 10 women that you can pick from for, let's say, the role of Cinderella or something, because they're the principals. And then there's only 4, like casts. So now there's really, it boils down to, you don't have that many people to pick from. Whereas on Broadway, it's like sometimes there's like 700 people for one role, and, and that's a lot. But in the music industry, there's how many billion people on the world, or in the world? There's probably, when it boils down to it, there's probably only like, 5,000 people that you need to know in the music industry, because they're the ones that are actually like the 1%ers that are making making something move and like people want to hear it and whatnot. And you know, and then there's about 1 billion people that are, you know, also in music industry. So it's just kind of confusing sometimes within the murkiness of the music industry, because you can get away with not having you can get away with a lot in the music industry as far as it's not on Broadway because you can't, there's no auto tune, there's no re-recording. It's live. You're doing it 8 times a week too. So you have to have also like really amazing vocal techniques so you don't lose your voice, because you don't get paid if you're not performing. So it's like it's serious. You have to be really talented to do Broadway. And then with music, you can get away with something. Like there's a lot of tricks of the trade that I'm finding out. I'm like, what? That would never fly in any of my prior, you know, industries. It's just, I'm not trying to talk, you know,
no, just the idea of there is a lesson in what you're saying, that either you have it or you don't. And even in music, there you might be able to smudge it a little bit and get through.
But yeah, at the end of the day, you have to have real talent, and you also have to have the drive, because it's, you know, you just have to have people around you that believe in you. There's a lot of elements that have to happen for someone to, they don't just, the star overnight thing does not happen. It's years and years on the making, and a lot of people around them.
Well, I'll share a little story with you, and I hope it doesn't go
Please.
far off tangent. When I was born, this is how the story goes that I know, that my parents were not together. And sometime after leaving the hospital, my mom took me to a hotel, possibly called a motel. And it was called Stardust Motel. Then this year I went to back to my hometown in Canada when my mom was sick, and then I had to go to, I couldn't find a hotel to go to, and the only one that was open at that time of night was the Stardust. And I happened to speak to the manager, and she had worked there for 40 years or something. And I told my mom I was here, and this lady knows that, you know, there was someone that came here years ago with a baby just out of the hospital. And I told my mom where I was, and I was in the exact same room that my mom brought me, which was right beside the check-in.
What?
And check-in, And so that leads me to ask you, what does the Empress do in being the founder and artist of Stardust World Productions?
Oh my God. Well, that is the most amazing, beautiful story, by the way, Brian. Like, okay, there are no coincidences in life. We know this, but there is someone upstairs that's just like, it's called the God wink.
It's still, the hotel is still existent in Bedford, Nova Scotia, Canada. Yeah, obviously, because I was there this year.
Oh my God, I love that. And that's the Stardust.
So yes, you are the founder of Stardust World Productions.
Yes. So I started Stardust World Productions because there's really not a lot of supporting female record labels out there. And one of my missions was I just feel like women need to learn how to support each other within the performing arts specifically, because, you know, that's all I can really speak to. But that world is so difficult to, I'm losing lights. That world is so difficult to support each other because, you know, it's like, let's say there's one role for Cinderella and there's 700 girls going out for that part or more, and only one person can get that role. And so that means that 699 people are not going to get that role, and they're all going to kind of be a little bit jealous and bummed out. And then you're also, if you're like, you know, specifically in the ballet world, if you're learning a role and you're like fourth cast or something, but you are better than the first cast person, there's a chance that you might get that opening night because you're better than the original person that they chose. And so then what they'll do is they'll put you up against maybe one of your really good friends. And then if you get that part, then the friend is jealous and mad and the whole thing, and they'd like put you against each other. So it's really hard for women to support each other. And I find that that's the missing link with female empowerment, is that a lot of times females we're not raised to support each other. We're raised, if that girl's prettier than me, then I shouldn't like her, or, you know, whatever it is. And I just think that that's not helpful for humanity at all.
Not
you know, and
conducive to a productive society.
yeah, and you know, female empowerment comes from within, and then goes, you know, it needs to be within the female networks as well. And so I just thought that would be really cool to start a record label to support Empress, and then as well as other women in the music industry in different ways. And not to be like, because men have such, I mean, I'm working with Bart Shodell, who's like one of the most incredible guys, because what he does, he's a man in the industry that opens doors and holds them open for women to get into the music industry and actually be successful, and he protects them, and he makes you feel safe, and he's just like, he's such an amazing advocate for women, because he really just like, I mean, that's why I have to fight over his time with like Beyonce and Lady Gaga and Billie Eilish and all of these huge celebrities, because they will not record without him anymore. And it's like amazing to just know that there's men that actually will support women as well. Yeah, and it's just really, it's a beautiful thing. My husband's also a big supporter of women, and in his profession, he's an attorney, and so it's just, you know, it's another world where, you know, we're finding equality, but the equality is going to, you know, it's going to come from women supporting women, I think, you know, because men are, generally speaking, you know, I don't know very many men who are raised with a good mother that would treat a woman poorly in any environment. So there are those, but I'm not going to focus on that. I want to focus on how women.
Yeah, that doesn't happen too often. What you're saying is it's usually the women are bringing one another down.
Yeah. You see a lot of that, and it's just the way that, you know, we've been raised in. You know, there's environments that just don't make it easy to support each other. No matter how much I was like loving on my girlfriends, there would be a time where it'd be awkward because I would get a part and she wouldn't, and you know, and it's like, oh, this, you know, and I was always happy when I didn't get a role, because of the fact that you never want to get a part that you're not good at, because then it actually could hurt your career way more than if, you know, the other way around, because you don't want to ruin your reputation. You want to do things that you're good at. And if you're that weak link in a show, people start resenting you. Because they have to work harder because you're not good enough to do the part, you know, whether that's acting, singing, dancing, you know, whatever it is. And so that's never good for someone's career. So whenever I got a part, I'd be really excited, because I was like, cool, I got the part because I was the best person for it, and I know I can do this, and it's going to be good for my career. But then, you know, like, not every girl feels happy when the other girl, I've said this a million times now, so
what's the life? Yeah, no, you're doing very well. What is the life of the Empress? Are you the Empress or Empress?
I'm just Empress, I guess.
What is the life and day of Empress nowadays?
Well, you know, I have been doing so much creative, I don't know, projects during 2020, because there's no reason to release anything. Like the beginning of COVID was just a weird time. It felt very selfish if you were going to release some music or something. I was just like, oh, this is not the right, it was not the right time to do it. There's nothing to do with it that you can perform. There's like all the things. Yeah. So what I started doing was all these projects that I've been wanting to do, but I haven't had time to do because I never home long enough to like focus on them. So one of them was this symphony that I wrote about 8 years on the piano, and I wanted to arrange it and orchestrate it and put it together. So I have like a 30-minute symphony that I arranged and orchestrated and did the whole thing, that I don't know how I'm going to release it yet, but it will come out at some point this year, maybe, I think at the end of the year. And then I've written and recorded a bunch of music that I will be releasing next month, which I'm really excited about. I've been recording a bunch of music videos, which has been super fun because, you know, it's made me super, like, have to be super creative because of COVID. I wanted a big cast for some of the music videos. And then I had to get really creative, and like now I'm the whole cast, but I have to play all these different characters. And, you know, so we've been doing COVID friendly projects, but you're forced to be more creative. And this year I feel like there's going to be so much that happens in 2021, because 2020 was the year that we all went inside, literally, like back in our homes. We have time to be creative. Yeah. We have time to contemplate and go through memories and find old notebooks with lyrics and things. So it's been really fun for me to like actually have this time at home with my husband. We just moved, so I've been like unpacking for the past week. But besides that, a lot of creativity. I'm writing a book, doing a bunch of things.
Well, really as I mentioned, you're going to have to start writing your manuscript on your new movie, Empress. But also keep in mind, you're going to have to put some, I don't know the proper terminology for like the little, someone that got beat by the Empress. And then part 2 is going to be Empress 2, like TOO.
Yep.
So you have 2 movies, right? That little girl that got snubbed, and then she's going to be the new Swan or whatever.
I love it. That's
2
great.
movies.
Hey,
you have 2.
That is amazing.
Empress and Empress 2.
Empress 2 with the 2
Yes.
Oh my God.
Something Empress 3 where the 2 of them come together and become friends to support.
What if it's an Empress 2-2? Like
2-2.
Instead of 3, it's like 2-2, like 2-2. A play on word.
The 2 of them together come together for Stardust World Productions and support.
Yay! Oh my God. See, and this is the fun part about being, you know, in your own driver's seat. It's like everything's an option now. There's no boundaries, and you are now on board with there's no boundaries. The creativity just flows, and, you know, when it's right, it just finds the right, you know, little pocket and just turns into its own thing.
Even though you're the Empress, I'm sure you have difficulties. And what would be in your work something that is difficult that we can learn from?
Well, I think the hardest challenge that I had, like, because I was so young growing up in the ballet, I was hired. This is a girl thing, so I'm sorry that you're here for this, but it was, my body changed. I went from being a girl to turning into a woman, and I had been hired as I have a
daughter. It's my biggest fear.
Yes,
conversation.
It's very difficult, but I have a happy story and transition out of that, which was my so I was fired. This is how we started the conversation. Was I was fired for being fat. Essentially, they couldn't call me fat, but they said I didn't fit in with the other girls, and I was taken out of all the ballets. It was humiliating. It was just like awful, you know. And it's just hard being told that basically you're just like, you're ugly, you know. It's, no one ever wants to hear that. And so I just, especially in a visual art form, it was really hard because it just is like, you know, now you're in a room full of mirrors. Now you're insecure. You don't want to be there, but you have to be there. And all the other girls might have eating disorders around you and you don't. And you're like now contemplating, do I need to do that? And my best friend, Luke, at the time, his mother was going, she actually was given 3 months to live. She had stage 4 cancer. And the last, you know, thing that she decided to try was a raw food diet. And he decided to do it with her and lost a ton of weight. And it was like, you could see like ligaments in his arms and legs. I mean, it was like tiny. And he was like, I can't keep weight on. You need to do this diet. And I was like, yeah, it's like sold to Fat Swan number 17, you know. It's like, so I was like, yes, I do need to do this. So I changed my diet. I got a naturopath. We did a couple cleanses. I lost all this weight. I felt amazing. And I got my job back at the end of the year. And I also had a longer career than anyone else that I know of in, especially all of the people that I started with, you know, I lasted, it was 11 years in San Francisco Ballet, when the average is usually 3 to 4 years, maybe. I mean, the principals usually keep going if they want to for, you know, they can go for 20 years if their bodies are hanging in there. But I changed my diet to being so healthy and eating foods as close to as nature intended them to be. And that was like, it was a challenge that I accepted. And then I turned that, lemon into lemonade, and kind of literally actually like lemonade. but that was a huge challenge, I think, because everyone has a body, and we all go through some sort of change, growing up. But doing it in a ballet company was like, that was the worst place I would never wish that on my worst enemy. It's like to go through puberty.
But Empress, this is your former life. I mean, what is your challenge?
Oh.
Empress of California,
Oh my God.
of America, of the world. What is your
God.
challenge?
You're too polite for just letting me ramble like
No,
that.
it's good. It's good, but it's good for so many people. I mean, you conjured up many questions I want to ask, but like, and then you answered a couple of the length of a ballet artist.
Oh my God.
The Empress,
yeah.
what is your challenge?
The Empress. My challenge
If us
now
humble
is,
servants could only help you with your challenges, just let us know.
yeah, my challenge is actually something that you can help me with.
Okay.
Is learning how to get my music out there and get it heard and get my story out to people, so that they can be inspired to become the ruler over their own life. I think it's a bigger mission for all of us, is to kind of share the message of what Empress and owning your own crown actually means. So it kind of, if each one of us could just show off our own crown to the next person, I think that little ripple effect might be a really cool thing. So I guess, the challenge now is actually figuring out how to get my music out there, because there's so many ways to do it. It's just like, I have no idea sometimes. So it's been very confusing.
I said this at the beginning before recording, that you have a beautiful voice, and I'm not just saying that, and my opinion doesn't matter, but it really is. And if people were to go on YouTube and find your videos that you have on there, like Lovely I Am, your other one that you have just most recently, isn't it? We Own This Crown.
Yeah.
Correct? And you have the videos
right.
to go with it. Just for people to listen, just once, they will know that this is music that needs to be spread. So that won't be a challenge for you. I mean, it initially seems like a challenge, but you're in the right place. And
it's getting that first little snowball rolling down the hill. And
this is a hard time
I'm
too.
actually going to be, and it's been a weird year for sure. Like I live for being on stage, and of course the stage has not been an option for quite some time. So that's has been a challenge this year. But I will have an EP coming out in November with a bunch of music videos and a bunch of little projects that I will be releasing. So make sure that you go to my Instagram. That's kind of like the one that I keep up to date, and my website, which is www.empress-music.com, and just like kind of try and keep up with it all, because it's all coming out in November.
So obviously you don't have a promoter. You are your own promoter.
Well, right now I am, for sure. I'm tooting my own horn, aren't I?
No, it's all right. I'll give you even more opportunity.
I
will give you more opportunity to toot as much as you want for toot. What, as the Empress, what brings you most satisfaction in your royal kingdom?
Oh, being able to create anything that I can think up. That's always been my dream, is just to actually just be able to keep creating everything that's in my head.
I think it's a great name. I keep saying it. I mean, the more I don't want to even call you your other name anymore, but the Empress. It's really good. It's a really, so what do you, as the Empress or as the entertainer, because you mentioned acting as well, what do people not understand about what you do and what you're growing into, right? This sort of new role that you would like people to understand, so they have either a better understanding of the industry that you're in, or just you as an individual? What would you like people to know about you that they probably don't understand as well as you would like them to?
That's a great way, because like I said earlier, it's like everybody needs something that's chewable. But it's that I am an artist, and I'm a performing artist, and that means a lot of things. That means that I do pop music, but I also do write classical music, and I do I write books to songs, and
Movies
there's
too.
no
Yeah.
movies too now. So and plays and things. So I don't want to ever put any limitations, especially on like, what I'm singing now might not be the direction that I'm going to go 5 minutes from now. You know, I write music and pop. That's my direction right now, but at some point it could change. And because I love different genres, we might start mixing and matching. So I guess to not put me in a box is all I ask for people. And that they allow me to grow as an artist without limitations. That's all I ask from my fans and followers.
And that's what you're saying about women in too, is don't pigeonhole the Empress, and don't
Yeah.
pigeonhole women, because they're more than just something that they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. We are all more than our professions, but I think the profession, if you give yourself time to dream, and then you let that dream kind of settle so that you can sort of, it's like when you're standing in water and you're moving it around, you can't really see your feet. But then if you let that water kind of settle, you can start seeing a little bit more detail. And that's kind of, you have to let things dream and let it be vague and wishy-washy, and like, don't share your dreams with everybody, because not everyone will be as excited about your dreams as you are. But when you can dream up what you want to do, and you can kind of let that dream settle, then you have like a target that you can aim at, and you can really see it. And then the closer you get, obviously the more details you can see. Like when I was 7, I wrote I wanted to be a ballerina, and then as I went, it was like, oh, I want to be a ballerina in San Francisco Ballet by the time I'm 16, and it started becoming more focused. But I think having a dream and like a goal and something that you can aim for will always help you. Yeah, with whatever you do. And I think that you kind of have to keep editing and dreaming bigger, and as you go. But why we work, I mean, you have to love what you do. I think that's
Don't answer that question yet. That's coming.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It is, I promise you. Thinking back as a dancer, I can only imagine how you were challenged to, like, I could just picture like a ballerina putting on ballet slippers.
Yes.
And, getting ready to, the morning routine. You, in your song, you mentioned blisters on your feet and work to the bone. Like that's some very vivid imagery of what you had experienced. And I can only imagine, like, some days you don't want to. And you mentioned weight, and I deal with like last night at dinner, after dinner, we had some potato chips. Like, I don't know how you're not like, oh, or some chocolate, or some, okay, let's go to McDonald's, or like one of the, I'm just going to do it. But even now, the challenges of being creative, right? Writing a new song, getting, the music video right, take after take after take. What is keeping you productive? What is maybe your motivating factor that gets you up and gets you going?
Oh gosh, I think it's kind of like that. Going back to the dreams, it's like you can cut through a lot of BS by just aiming for a target. You know that it's worth it at the end of the day. There'd be times where I'd be in rehearsal and my toes were bleeding and I was getting yelled at, and there were, my partner was mad at me, and I, was like just not in a good place.
Every reason
but it was
to quit.
Worth it. Yeah, every reason to quit. And just being yelled at for being fat, like, oh my God, like, it's awful. There's all these things that would happen. And at the end of the day, I would imagine myself like, on stage getting that applause at the end and feeling really good about it. And you can get through rehearsals like that. And that's life. I mean, if you really, there's hard days for everyone. And if you focus on the hard days, then that's going to, be really tough. It's going to be a tough life. If you focus on getting through those things, the only way out is through, then you'll get through. I mean, there's always, the show must go on always. And if you can just get through those things, as lighthearted as you can, kind of enjoy that process, because everything's, you know, everything is supposed to happen. And if you can learn those lessons through the tough times, then the easy times are going to just be that much better, you know?
So that's how you stay productive. How is it,
Yeah.
what sort of thing keeps you most efficient? What is a tool that you use that you cannot, you know, when I ask this question, some people say,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a tool. You know, I talk. So, okay, maybe my brain, and for you, maybe it's a voice.
Yeah.
What is your favorite tool? And even having the broad experience that you have in artistry, of not
Mm-hmm.
only, you know, singing, but dancing and performing and acting and playing musical instruments and producing, like this, you have a
Yeah.
wide spectrum. So what have you found to be the best thing for you in your tool belt?
Post-it notes.
Yeah.
Notes. I write down all of the things that I need to do in a day, and like it keeps me focused, and that has been probably the best tool. My dad taught me that really early on. He's like, write down your dreams and goals, but then on a daily basis, write down little things, even if it's like brush my teeth, wash my face. Oh my gosh, I love it. Yes, all of those Post-it notes. Exactly. Post-it notes, it's the best tool because it keeps you focused. You actually have to physically write it down, and that feels so good to physically cross it off. And I'm not talking about notes on your computer or iPad or something. It's like you writing it down actually makes you, I don't know, just feel more satisfied when you can cross it off.
It's funny. I like Shark Tank, and I remember years ago there was it doesn't matter, but an Asian lady who presented. I think it was Shark Tank or Canadian Dragon Den, but I think it was Shark
Yeah.
Tank. And she came with this plexiglass sort of thing to go around your laptop, and it was for
Oh,
sticky
wow.
notes. It was only for sticky notes. Like you would put this thing up and put the sticky notes because you have
And
a
then you can
laptop
put the sticky notes around.
around it.
Oh my gosh.
They laughed her off stage, but the sticky notes are a good thing.
They're the best. And whoever those sticky notes,
I hope she
whoever
made
does
it. I
those.
hope she made
I
it.
know, right? Totally. That's amazing.
Empress, what is your top tip for people getting into work? Thinking of my audience of people listening, whatever work they may get into, what is your top tip for even a good work ethic? What would you
Yeah.
say would be your number one top tip?
I would say attitude of gratitude. Being really gracious, humble, and excited to work with people will make them want to work with you more. And that will just, I mean, if you make your work environment fun, I don't care what you do for a living, if you kind of keep some lightheartedness, you're still focused, you're still professional. But if you can kind of be, you know, easygoing, lighthearted, intelligent, but like, you know, so you don't have to play it dumb or anything. You don't have to be the class clown, but just to make it a fun work environment so that, you know, your work is fun all the time, because, you know, you can't just wait for the funny moments or something. You kind of, you know, constantly create your own environment and know that you're in control of, you know, your reactions and your life and all of the things. Even if it's a stressful environment, just kind of try and make it easy and flow, you know?
Many times it opens up opportunities too, if you're
Yeah,
that
it totally
gracious,
does. And when
kind,
people
and
want to
humble
work with
person.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, when people want to work with you, again, that's a huge compliment. And, you know, and that's a good thing to do. It helped me throughout my whole career.
What does the Empress do when she's not working? What do you do to keep a good life work balance?
Lots of naps. I'm a professional napper.
I mean, the
And
worst thing is the Empress, sorry, is you're in music. So some people say, well, I like to listen to music. I like to go sing or go
no,
dance. You know?
I take lots of naps. Because I feel like I sleep to dream. So I reset my day several times a day. I'll take like a 10-minute nap here and there. And it just kind of like keeps me, it's almost like it keeps my days in snapshots. So it's not just this like big whirlwind of a thing. I just kind of like, after a call or something with you, like I'll take a little nap, even if it's close to bedtime. I'll just do a little nap just to like reset my day. And then I have energy and I feel like I wake up happy and refreshed every time. But I'm a pro napper. I love naps. I can take a nap in like 2 minutes. It's
You
like
put
crazy.
nice little bookends within the day.
yeah, you kind of like have these little, like, okay, let's start fresh from this moment on. And if
What? Yeah,
you're
go
feeling
ahead.
like your day's going sideways, definitely take a nap, because then it just stops it and then you can start over. It's great.
I'm a power 3 to 6 minute napper. It works.
Nice.
It works well, almost to the point where I just fall asleep and then I'm awake and
Yeah, and then
it's a whole new day.
that's the best. Oh God, if you look in the history books, there's a lot of scientists who used to do that too. They actually wouldn't sleep a whole night. They would just take naps through, whenever they needed it. It's crazy.
So
Love it.
as the Empress, what, to get to be an Empress, what did you, or even better, what do you wish you would have known that would have made becoming the Empress that much easier or a little bit differently?
Yeah, I had this thought yesterday actually, is that never lose confidence in yourself. That's all I'm going to say, is that
Yeah.
you are you are who you are, and being confident in that, and like not giving power to other people is everything. So, just kind of going into this new career, it's like there's a humbleness that I have that sometimes can actually go too far, and oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I realized, no, I always knew what I was doing. And, I was just giving the power and control over to someone else. And I shouldn't have been waiting for this person. I shouldn't have been doing this. So really just knowing that, I do know who I am, and I do know what I want. And, not knowing is okay, but not knowing and giving your power to other people is unhealthy. It's not a good balance.
Yeah, I think, and this is true of what you've been saying throughout, and also being confident in yourself, but understanding, there's other people in the world, there's other factors that are
Yeah.
going to happen. And just because they happen, it doesn't mean you're any different than who you thought you were. And it's just,
Right.
it's like the adage or the saying of the airplane, which is true. It's when it's on autopilot, it's always readjusting based on the winds and the flows of the currents of the air. It's going on a straight path to your direction. But you're always adjusting, but it doesn't make the flight any different, or your destination any different, or it doesn't make the plane any different.
Totally. Exactly.
What I know, the Empress does not make many mistakes, but what is one that you have made that you've learned from that you would like to share?
Let's see. I actually would like to say that I have this thing that my dad gave me called loser's amnesia, and I don't focus on my mistakes. I don't even remember them most of the time, which is interesting. I do remember what not to do when I'm in the situation, but I really try and focus on what I did right as much as possible, because I think the human brain goes down that path of mistakes, and then it's like, oops, I made it again, because that's what you're thinking of. It's like I just try and focus on doing the right thing.
That's a great answer. I mean, it is a better way to think of it. And not only that, I mean, as I mentioned before to people, of forgiveness when people do make mistakes. I think regardless of recognizing one's mistake, is being the person who, as you said, is being gracious and humble, but also forgiving.
Right.
And as if you're like that landing pad where planes are constantly coming and going, and not gripping on to feeling resentment and maybe hatred towards someone, but being forgiving, because everyone makes mistakes, and let's not dwell on them, but let's move forward and where we can learn from them.
Yeah, totally.
You mentioned education, and I totally agree with you. And because some people get a little defensive, like, oh, well, I didn't go to college, I didn't get a degree. But what you did is perfectly suited for you. How do you, even though you didn't go to traditional school and you didn't go on to something else, how do you value education or learning for people? So for my listeners, because there's some people out there that say, well, education's not important. They could be hinting at that, higher education, a university degree, is not as important as it's touted to be, which I can agree to for some things. but how would you value, or where would you place value on education?
I would say that education is everything, but it's learning how to learn for you. What's your best way of learning? For me, my learning capabilities are not really great in big groups of people. So I was, a great student in private lessons. I still am. I mean, even my acting classes, my acting coach in New York, she had me try and take an acting class, and I couldn't do it, but in privates I was fine. It was just really interesting. But I do really well on the job, learning as well. So for me, I just, at a younger age, I feel like, because when you're homeschooled, you're the only one in the class, so you're really tailored. Your schooling is tailored to you. Certain subjects I was really fast in, like I said, math I got really quickly, and then other things were just more difficult. Science was actually not very easy for me at first, and then and then as I got older, I got better. Spelling, I still suck at spelling. I mean, there's like certain things that you know about yourself.
Well, that goes with mistakes. I keep making the same mistake with the same word all the time, and I just don't,
Yeah, right. I mean, like, it's just, there's certain things, but I guess whatever works for you, because and whatever will get you to your highest and greatest good. For me, if I went to college to learn how to do ballet, I would have never made it into a ballet company, because that's not the right trajectory for a ballerina. The ballet school happens much younger than 18, 19, 20, because 18, 19, 20 is your prime physical body. So you have to be already in a company by then, I mean, you don't have to, but you should be. And so, that kind of changed my course, because of course I wanted to go to college, but then it didn't make sense, because I was full-time doing ballet. And if you don't focus full-time in the ballet, you don't really get as far in your career if you're kind of like doing a bunch of other things, because it's a full-time, profession. And then for Broadway and stuff, that transition happened. So then it was sort of like, well, now I need acting lessons. So I'm going to find the best teacher. Yeah. I'm going to get as much. I mean, I was taking 3 lessons a week for like 2 years. I mean, and then singing, I was there all the time, just like getting all these vocal lessons. And then I have a songwriting partner. We've spent like years worth of time working on writing, and I learned so much from her, because she's a teacher, and but I'm learning on the job. So I'm always learning, I'm always trying to grow, but I grow in the direction towards my dreams, right? So it's not like I don't waste my time learning about something that's really not going to help me get to my goal. So I think
all educational.
Yeah, it's all educational, and I think it's super important. And if you're becoming a doctor, then like you need to go to, you can't just, I have a mentor. You know what I mean? You have to edit your life. Teach me
open heart surgery here.
Yeah, exactly. Like we found a frog and I dissected it, and now I'm a doctor. Like it doesn't happen like that. Yeah, I'm good. Open up your brain. So yeah, it's each his own.
Empress, from your throne, what encouragement do you offer people, especially consider now, but it's no different, I don't think. I mean, we don't want to put too much emphasis on this year as, oh, it's the worst of all times. People have horrible times all through life. Life is a challenge, and work is a challenge for you, for people that are working in blue collar jobs. They're difficult. What sort of encouragement would you offer to people who are, maybe getting into work and scared or nervous, like thinking of you on stage of 3,500 people? You probably had some jitters, but it's something that you had that focus to go through. But also people who are disgruntled, not very happy with their career. What sort of encouragement would you offer them?
I would say the one thing that really helped me was just to breathe through it always. If you're having a really tough moment, that moment will pass, but it's your choice to take it's your reactions. You have control over them. But if you breathe through that, it's going to be so much easier because you know that you're going to get to the next one, and then you kind of focus on something that you know how to do subconsciously, and that kind of makes you feel a little bit more confident because, you know, subconsciously even it'll make you feel more confident because you're like, okay, I know how to do this at least, you know, that'll help me get through the next moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then just do it, just get through those moments, because on the other side, there's so much growth that happens between getting through something that feels uncomfortable and getting to the other side of that. You feel almost more refreshed. It's like, oh, I just got through that. And then that gives you the confidence to go through the next boundary, and it doesn't, you know, doesn't seem as big as the last one, and you get better and better at doing that. And then there's no fear, and there's no, you know, there's no more boundaries that you're afraid of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, just breathe through it, take a deep breath, and exhale.
I think we did a pretty good job of differentiating between Shannon Rugani, the person, and Empress, the brand, the up and coming star who has a lot of talent, a lot of know-how in this industry. How can someone reach you on either platform if they're looking to contact you? Or this is your touting now, your
This is my tooting of the horn. Okay, yes. Great. So follow me at my my Instagram, which is empress.music, and then my Shannon Rugani Instagram as well. And then yeah, I'm there mostly. There's Twitter and Facebook and all of that fun stuff as well, but it's all the same. It's all at empress.music. And then, you know, my website, which is www.empress-music.com, is where everything is. And then stream me on whatever music streaming platforms. You can find me as Empress.
Yeah. And your videos are on YouTube as well, which are
and the videos on YouTube. Yeah,
connected through your website.
Yeah.
Empress, Mrs. Shannon, my final question for you: why do you work?
I work because this is my purpose in life. Everything that I'm doing is a dream come true, and I work because I know that was my purpose in life, or this is my purpose in life.
Empress Shannon Rugani, thank you kindly. You've been an exceptional guest, and I hope you all the best in your future, and I look forward to seeing Empress and Empress 2 and Empress Tutu coming in theaters near us soon.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me, Brian. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.